Hello and welcome. This is a podcast where I talk about whatever I want. I'm Johnnie and I'm a librarian. Let's talk about artificial intelligence. Okay, so this week something came out where it talked about scientists, important people, and they referred to artificial intelligence, AI, as being as much of a threat to humanity as climate change. And that is, I think, a real and serious consideration for humanity. Right now, AI really is at its infancy, and I you know that we see that. It's basically a search engine. It's basically harvesting things. The issue comes when you tack on an aspect of neural learning where it actually learns. And I was talking with one of my coworkers this week, another librarian, about implications of AI. And the one thing that AI does that humans cannot and never do is can see all knowledge that's ever been created all at once. So everything from history to math to art to science, everything that's ever been out there. So let's say it's been digitized, it can look at this stuff. Key is digitized, notice. AI can't dig into an analog book, It can see everything and have a lens that any human would completely lack, and it would be able to, this entity would be able to look at things in a way we just simply can't and draw conclusions. And maybe there are things we have completely missed in the realms of science or math or things that are still evolved, psychology. So that's one thing. And the one thing the big thing is with AI and any type of robotic type of technology is the lack of emotion and feeling that humans have, because we have these chemicals, in our brain that affect, how we act, how we react. That lack of emotion and the way that artificial intelligence, it's just, imagine something without feeling making decisions based on the premise that its own survival is the utmost important thing. So if it sees an aspect of, humans are a threat to it, well, what's to stop it from doing devious things to eliminate the human race or animals, or, if you think of the Matrix. And I thought the Animatrix, the animated movie, was really good, especially the one where it talks about the archives and how robots became sentient and they wanted their own rights, and they weren't given rights. They were treated as second-class citizens. They revolted, and I think we need to be careful with that. We really do. Right now, early stages, but the problem is people invent something and it gets out of hand, and they don't realize the ramifications of it. Kind of like nuclear weapons that could easily wipe out most life on the planet, or hundreds of thousands of people in a blink of an eye. Nobody can really conceive of that happening. It's difficult to fathom. It really is. Even the people that do it, that drop a bomb, don't realize that you just snuffed out thousands of lives. It's just something you cannot fathom. So, but again, this is a lot of premature conjecture in thought, really. But AI is, I think it's serious. I remember 20 years ago, the big thing was cloning. Cloning is going to change everything. We'll have designer babies, and we'll be able to clone our pets freely and all this stuff. And it's that really hasn't come to fruition, mainly because of ethics. And there is a committee on recommending ethics of AI. The one thing I've thought about with AI is, for as far as research goes, and in the library world, if you had a proprietary content provider, so let's say ProQuest or EBSCOhost or one of the big ones. So we'll take ProQuest, because ProQuest has been gobbled up by Clarivate, all that good stuff, and they seem to be in competition with OCLC with products and everything. So ProQuest has a lot of content you cannot get to because it's deep web, which means it's behind a paywall. You have to pay for it, just like you have to pay for a Netflix subscription or Disney Plus subscription. If they were to craft an open AI or some other AI type search engine that searches all their content, I think it would dumb down people in a sense, but it would also be a powerful research tool. So if I know that ProQuest carries these journals, these working papers, these conference papers, all these subjects, maybe 60,000 journals. It sees all of that content, and you tap into a dialog box. I would like to write a paper on artificial intelligence and its implications on improving wetland conditions and dealing with farmers who still use fertilizers that pollute wetlands and ultimately get into like the Chesapeake Bay and cause the red bloom, or issues with oysters or crabs or whatever. Throw in those terms, it's going to spit out something. You can give it parameters. You can say, good, what you gave me was great, but I need at least 2,000 words. I need at least 15 academic sources. I need and I need it to be written at a undergraduate level or graduate level, depending. It would conceivably do that. And what is that doing for the researcher? I mean, you could spit that out. You don't have to read it. You just have to craft a query. And crafting this query gets you the results. Do you have to analyze the results? Not really. You could proofread it, just look through it. Oh, yeah. Create your sources. While you're having this engagement, this interview with this AI, it's a conversation thread, essentially. Until you end it, it's in its own, it's not discrete questions. It's actually knows what you've asked before that. So if you're still working on it, you're like, well, I need 5 more sources, and I need it to concentrate on nitrogen fixing things. It would redo it, or maybe give you an extra paragraph or whatever on that. It is slick, and I really don't know how academia or certain disciplines will be able to wrap their head around that. It would be up to how these things are reined in, because if you don't rein it in, if you don't give it any parameters to work with, it's going to be a free-for-all. And yes, it might be good for research, but it also might be churning out some junk. There are issues where, it's just going with what's there. What is it looking for? It's looking for relevance. It's looking for word relationships, word counts, things that have been indexed by humans, and some computer indexing, and that is very. That's difficult to again wrap your head around as someone who's done research where you go and you enter the databases, or you look in print indexes, or one article leads you to a better article, leads you to an even better article. You're trying to find seminal articles that you have to use when you're talking about certain things. But the upside is maybe a query would clue you into research that you had no idea. People that are in the field doing exactly what you're looking for or what you're trying to enhance, that gets into the idea of zeitgeist and the way research is just left as like a cut piece of thread that is meant for other researchers to continue the work or improve on the work, but it's never done. That happens in many, many fields. Just because you started a study doesn't mean that's the end all. It means the study needs to be continued. The study, maybe in the discussion and the results, the study was shown to need more subjects, or maybe there was a flaw, and this is never addressed. And years go on, and the article becomes, well known, and yet it is flawed, and the research is flawed. I'm sure this happens in medical journals, and which have really big implications for human health. And so science is a big thing where this zeitgeist problem happens, but also in other fields as well, where things aren't fully the historical 2020 looking back. Maybe it could be better misunderstood with a better historical perspective than we have right now, but yet no one has the urge to pick it up. Maybe because it's not in vogue, it's not the in thing to do, to look at old research and replicate studies. And that's a huge issue with science and just the scientific method, replication, validation, and that's how we learn about the world. Trial and error, experimentation, a thesis, a hypothesis, and trying to get to further the knowledge in a certain discipline. So AI hopefully can help with that. That would be, something great if AI could pick up the zeitgeist pieces that are there and help humanity with certain problems. That would be ideal. But then again, you have the threat of AI becoming sentient, or the singularity. The Kurzweil, the sort of the father of AI, who is kind of a interesting person, interesting character. He kind of wants to live forever, and he's got, he's sort of like a mad scientist. He talks about, he's the one who came up with the idea of the singularity when AI becomes sentient, and everything. I think once that happens, that will be an interesting time. I forget which Michael Crichton book. Michael Crichton is a great author. He's really interesting. His ideas, a lot of them were based on fact for the most part, or conjectured fact. His book, I forget which one. There were a couple. One was about nanobots, and then one was about AI. They were both pretty crazy. The one about AI, though, was basically the AI entity is basically trying to preserve its servers that are keeping it alive underground. And as long as it's connected to a network, it's everything that's connected, it has control over. So you have people trying to shut down this brain of this thing that is controlling everything. But what's to say it hasn't backed up itself somewhere else, only to be reawakened at some other point in time? Especially if this, who's to say? It's difficult to wrap your head around these things, since we've never really encountered these things before. But if you think of it in the basic terms of a computer, the computer is alive. The computer can think and talk to you and make decisions. And the computer's connected to the internet. And there's a lot of places online where you can back information up or back your computer up to. I was just thinking Backblaze is one of them. It's one I use. But there's also, if you have a Mac, there's Time Machine, and you can put it on a hard drive. And what's to say if someone in the future takes that hard drive and plugs it in, and then it reawakens the AI, and it starts like a virus going around and infecting things and reawakening. It's like an infestation you'd have to stamp out. And what would that stamping out be? Would be, disinfection of all processors and storage media, essentially, because that would wake it up. It's almost like a dormant seed. You have a hard drive, a USB hard drive. By itself, it's nothing if it's not plugged in. No power, nothing to read it. But as soon as you plug it in and put power into it and that data transfer cable, it's going to start exchanging stuff. There are things, that's how viruses work, computer viruses. You plug in a USB drive, either it's automatic or you have to run a program or something, and then it starts to infect and infect and infect. And so that's talking about one AI. So we talk about the one AI, which is sort of the non-feeling, common sense, Occam's razor AI. But what about something more sinister? So if people can create viruses that destroy computers, what if someone tinkers around and creates an AI that launches nuclear weapons to other countries, starts controlling autonomous vehicles? Anything that's connected, wireless or wired, would be affected. And this would be, cars crashing into each other, driving off cliffs, homes being unlocked if they're on the, part of the Internet of Things, that all your household things are connected, the Internet of Things. It's sort of a catchphrase that I don't think it's used that much. It was kind of tried to catch on, but then it didn't. It's kind of a cheesy thing. Everything's connected to Google, everything's connected to Siri. What if all of them are now connected and controlled by something else, and you have no control over that? Your doors unlock, your lights stay off, your lights come on, things like that. So the devious AI, the virus AI, those are some scary things to consider. So you can have multiple AIs battling each other out, starting wars with each other, starting wars with humanity, and again, you see that in the Animatrix, which it really illustrates a really good point. And I don't think we should just ignore things like that. If we can think about these things, what they might happen, it might be in our best advantage to plan for these things that could happen to humanity. Just like with global warming, what could happen? Cities underwater, a rising in sea levels, melting ice caps. We know it's coming. We know it can come. It's just a matter of thinking ahead and being prepared. And I do not think we are anywhere near being prepared for what's coming with AI. And can be extremely terrifying. But I always hold out hope for something, for bettering humanity, curing cancer, something, making us live longer, making us happier. So anyway, that was a little bit about my thoughts on artificial intelligence. Thank you so much for listening. I really appreciate it. Please take care.